How's it everyone, this is Lolcohol, and in today's video we're going to be doing an update on the Lightning Strike Raider. Build has been performing super well this league. I had a bit of a slow start, lots of other stuff, but we have all our watchstones, almost completed the Atlas, almost done all of these things. One thing I really struggled with was the Feared, but I mean I wasn't actually expecting to pull it off. I think we could do it now, but at the time I tried it, failed. So other than that, everything else has been fine. All the pinnacle bosses have been smooth sailing. There's a few changes to the build, nothing major, but I do want to go over them in today's video. First thing, probably the most important thing, I think someone in chat suggested this. I can't remember their name. Was it Abradix? Please remind me. This is such an excellent change. I actually did this in the past on other melee builds. I think I did it maybe on Lightning Strike in the past, but I completely forgot about it. This is so good. This implicit on your chest. Melee hits have a % chance to Fortify. For bossing and also for mapping, this is going to make your Fortify uptime much more consistent. For bossing, pretty much your Fortify was non-existent. I was kind of just, I accepted that. I was like, for bossing, you're not going to have Fortify. However, for this, now you can have Fortify. And what's extra good about this is when you have Fortify, you have Onslaught, which again, for bosses, previously didn't really have a good source of it unless you use the Silver Flask. So previously our only Onslaught source was from Graceful Assault, so chance to gain on kill, which is perfect for mapping. You're always going to have it up for mapping, but for bossing, there wasn't really a source of it. So I was thinking just use a Silver Flask for your bosses, which is fine. However, this completely solves this. This gives us Fortify for bossing, gives us Onslaught for bossing. It's just so good. So previously we were using Wrath Aura effect. However, I can vouch for this. Melee hits have chance to Fortify. So much better, so much more consistent. There are a few other changes, so let's go over them. Firstly, the Anoint. So previously I was suggesting you anoint this over here. Arcing Blows gives us penetration, gives us lightning damage with attacks. It's also hit by our either Brutal Restraint or Lethal Pride, so it's an excellent anoint. However, for the purposes of power charge generation, this is so much better. Disciple of the Forbidden. So up here, that's this over here. +1 minimum power charges, chance to gain a power charge on kill, and 8% increased damage per power charge. This is super good. So if you've been mapping, feeling like you're not really generating that many power charges because your Assassin's Mark isn't proccing enough, I highly recommend this. I think this is actually best in slot for the build. I will update the original POB to update this. But again, just for quality of life, generating power charges, getting extra damage, having your power charges up when you need them, this is the best anoint we can go for. Then let's talk about Vaal Haste and Vaal Lightning Strike. So previously in the original guide, I did recommend using Vaal Haste. However, I actually haven't used it this league, and I think that's probably the correct decision. The main reason for that is that Vaal Haste, I think it uses 50 souls before it has enough charges to be able to be used. And it does kind of interfere with our Vaal Lightning Strike. So in order to get max charges on your Vaal skills, I believe the way it works is that it alternates between them. So if you get a Vaal Soul, it'll like one will go to Vaal Lightning Strike and then one will go to Vaal Haste. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure that's how it works. So by only having one Vaal skill, you're getting your Vaal Lightning Strike charges much more often. So for those of you who have been running Vaal Haste, if you're enjoying it, you can stick with it. However, I do recommend trying to drop your Vaal Haste and seeing how it feels. That does, however, leave us with one extra gem socket. And what we have decided to put in is having an increased duration support with our Divine Blessing. So without the increased duration, this only lasts for 10.9 seconds. With that, it lasts for 18.86. That might be 19 when this is level 20, but I think this is very nice. However, it does make our cost a little bit higher. So it goes from 336 up to 406, increasing it by 30% more. So if you have enough ES to do this, absolutely do pop that in place of that Vaal Haste. It's super nice, super good quality of life for that Wrath Divine Blessing setup. Another important thing, if you have corrupted your Grace and you hit Vaal Grace, go buy another one, get rid of it. We do not want Vaal Grace for the same reason that that skill is going to be chowing up charges. It's going to mean that you're getting fewer Vaal Lightning Strike charges. So get rid of it, have this as your only Vaal skill. Same for any of the other gems that are potential Vaal skills. Next, a few people were talking about tattoos. I've opted for these increased flask effect duration ones. We don't need a ton of dexterity. These I paid, I think, about 8C each for. If you can get a bunch of these, you drop these on all of your little dexterity travel nodes, you're getting increased flask effect duration. For mapping, not that big a deal. Again, you're probably going to be max flask uptime because of the clear. However, for bossing, once again, it does help just get that uptime a little bit better. As for this Taste of Hate, probably wondering about this. This is very, very, very much optional. So previously I was using a Quicksilver, but because we are just whirling blading all around the place, I figured don't really need a Quicksilver flask. I was using the suffix increase critical strike chance. I also tested using a silver flask before we swapped over to this melee hit Fortify, and that was nice. So if you're not using a Taste of Hate, can use silver flask or Quicksilver flask and then get a crit suffix or one of these suffixes. You want like attack speed, evasion rating, crit, armor as suffixes on your flask, and then corrupted blood immunity on your life flask. However, if you don't feel like you really need that fourth flask, Taste of Hate is a really good option. The main reason I'm using this, I actually rolled this shield with Rog. This one has +3 max cold res, and I thought, you know what? That plus Taste of Hate, 83 cold res, and we're getting a little bit of Fizz taken as cold, just a bit of extra EHP. Another alternative you could do, and I think our friend Rob is doing this on his SSF version of builds, is to use a Dawnbreaker. That is the shield. I love this shield. I use it on my Blade Vortex build. It's so good. It's so good. This guy over here drops from the Searing Axe Arc. Cold, lightning, Fizz taken as fire. You can get a decently rolled one of these for not too much. Has a huge chunk of armor if it's rolled well, and a little bit of life. This is super good. If you're looking to tank up even more, you can use one of these, and then your fourth flask would be a Ruby flask that you would use with this. Ruby flask giving you that max fire res combined with this, a lot of tankiness. So if you do feel like you're dying a bit, I would recommend just looking at your flask, looking at your gear, seeing what you have. But there are other options if you want to really try a Dawnbreaker. If you do go this route, just make sure that you have that 30% elemental ailment avoidance somewhere else on your gear, whether it be your body armor, or you can get it as an implicit on boots or a suffix with Essence of Loathing. You can get elemental ailment avoidance like that. Or if you somehow have 6 points just chilling, you can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, well, 5 points, and then get the corrupted blood immunity over here. That's another 30% elemental ailment avoidance. But that is an option for people who are maybe looking for a bit more tankiness. Although I don't feel like I have been dying. The things I have been dying to, almost always I know exactly what killed me, and it's kind of like deserved. Either I flame dash into a whole lot of explosions, or I just stood in a ground degen a little bit too long, or got corrupted blooded or something like that. As for gloves, the Haunted modifier +1 maximum frenzy charge. This is super good. Frenzy charges, more damage, more attack speed, and we're getting the buffs, of course, from the Raider Ascendancy over here. These are actually cheap. Of course, if you want to get a well-rolled one, it's going to cost you a bit more. I am looking forward to doing a Frenzy crit multi pair of gloves. That is going to be really good for the build. Should be an interesting-ish craft, but for gloves, max frenzy charges, see if you can get the little extra things you need, like a little bit of strength, maybe a little bit of accuracy here and there. Speaking of accuracy, so in my POB, the original one, I did recommend getting a claw with dual tier 1, tier 2 elemental, and then hits can't be evaded multi-mod. That's still an excellent option early on. However, this league in particular, with the power of grave crafting, you can make actually perfect claws this league. I have a video, I'll link it in the description, where I attempted to make a perfect triple tier 1 LE claw with tier 1 attack speed, tier 1 crit chance, tier 1 crit multi. Got a bit unlucky, but we're going to try it again. And this is big damage, so I highly recommend going for something like this if you're looking for a bit more damage instead of the hits can't be evaded thing. However, that does mean you are going to need accuracy on your tree and on your gear. So on mine, we have 100% accuracy, 100% chance to hit, 97% chance to hit evasive monsters. Good enough for me. In order to do that, I've just taken this wheel, which gives us crit chance, accuracy, 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 and then the accuracy rating, -2 accuracy rating per level. This is granting me currently, I think, 310 accuracy. If you do have more than 310 or 300 dexterity, what you can do instead is take the dexterity's accuracy bonus, instead grants +3 accuracy. That will grant you more dexterity. But because I'm chowing up all my dex with these tattoos, I instead opted for this. On top of that, a little bit of accuracy on my gloves. And then I've also taken Life Raker temporarily. I have not gone for the cluster setup yet. I probably will. If I do, in that case, I'll probably need to get a bit more accuracy on my gloves or somewhere else, somewhere on my gear in order to account for that. Those are the main changes of the build so far. The rest of the gear pretty much the same as in the POB. As for people who are maybe a bit further behind and you have some questions about when do I swap to crit, when do I put on that perseverance belt, my biggest recommendation, do not make these swaps too early, and also use Path of Building to just map it out with the actual gear that you have before you make these swaps. Something that happened to me, and I think is a potential problem for other people, is if you make these changes too soon, these transitions into crit and into perseverance too early, what ends up happening is that you feel like you take a step backwards in power, whereas the intention with these swaps is to take a step forward. Obviously, that's why I'm making them. You're meant to swap to crit and be like, hell yeah, now I'm doing a lot more damage, feeling so much better, feeling so much more tanky, everything's better. However, I swapped away too early. A couple of other people in chat also swapped too early and they had that feeling of, I swapped to crit and my build feels worse, help, what do I do? So when swapping to crit, you want to make sure that you at least have a decent crit claw first. This suffix, critical strike chance, this is going to affect the base crit on your claw. So get a claw with base crit first. This is going to further multiply all those increases to critical strike chance that you get on all your other gear and your tree. So very important, make sure you have that. Try and then also transition the tree and getting all these crit multi things around the tree. If you can get like crit multi on an amulet, crit chance on an amulet, that's also huge. But don't feel pressured to make that change before you're ready. If precise technique is feeling really good, stick with it until you have all the other gear slots in place. Primarily, most important thing is just getting a decent claw with good crit strike chance. As for perseverance and swapping into this, again, this is something I've seen some people swap into too early. The reason that this is not good to swap into too early, if your armor is too low, it's just really not providing the damage that it should be. So 1% increased attack damage per 200 of the lowest of armor and evasion rating. So with my Flask down, I have 15.4k armor with Flask up, 26, and then with Vaal Lightning Strike down and Soul Gain Prevention getting a bunch more. I think we're sitting at about 35,000. So 35, let's just say it's 36,000. 36,000 divided by 200 is 180. So this is granting me now 180% increased attack damage. If for some reason you have, 5,000 armor, that's really not granting you all that much damage. So don't make this swap too early. Things you want to have in place before swapping to perseverance, you want to have armor during soul gain prevention as a craft on your chest, very important. Also, you want to have a granite flask with armor as a suffix. Of course, if you have that armor suffix on your jade flask, that's fine, but just making sure you have that. And then making sure you have decent armor on other parts of your gear. It doesn't have to be amazing, but making sure that you have like armor evasion gloves or an armor evasion shields or armor evasion boots. All of these things all add up a fair amount. As for the base on your chest, Triumphant Lamellar, someone brought this to my attention today on stream, said should I use General's Brigandine, Triumphant Lamellar, or Full Dragon Scale? Full Dragon Scale is probably the best base because it has the highest armor. It has more armor than evasion. General's Brigandine is a perfect balance of armor and evasion. Triumphant Lamellar is more evasion than armor, so going for that Full Dragon Scale is probably the best thing to craft on because it's going to be giving you more armor, which again scales with your perseverance, which is great. So all of those things, make sure you have a decent amount of armor. You've got your granite flask. Maybe go for this with the shield, armor evasion shield instead of armor or ES evasion shield, and some sorcerer boots. Diadem, make sure you get this. This actually feels really good, saves tons of points on the tree. all of that, I think, is it. So if you have any other questions, be sure to leave it in the comments. Also join the Discord. There is a channel for the build. If you need help with your build specifically, drop your POB in there, give me an @ I won't be annoyed. We'll check it out. There's also some very helpful people in there who will be willing to take a look at your build and give you some tips. But that's going to be it. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Stay safe. Catch you in the next video. Bye-bye.
It's ranching exile. You're making me nervous.